Welcome to the Art of Badassery, where I explore what it takes to live life on your own terms, break free from the status quo, and unleash your inner badass. Whether you're a rebel at heart or simply seeking inspiration to step outside your comfort zone, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Mahara and each week I dive into the stories, insights, and strategies of those who have mastered the art of badassery and are living life to the fullest. They smile when no one is looking. Welcome to the Art of Badassery podcast. My name is Mahara, and I'm so excited today to introduce you to my guest, Lane Gardner, a speaker, author, arts educator, and co-founder of Thread, a nonprofit that serves trauma survivors and communities in crisis. Lane is a fierce advocate for healing through creative expression and has spent nearly 30 years helping others uncover their creative brilliance. She's turned her painful past, including surviving a fundamentalist cult, into a powerful tool for mental wellness. We are going to dive into her journey today. We're going to look at her TEDx talk and her new book, Lifeline. So grab your favorite drink and let's jump right into today's conversation. Lane, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Mahara. I'm psyched to be here.
We're going to have fun. So I often open my show with a very bold question, which is, why are you badass?
Well, I came from a tough past, right? And I know we're going to dive into it a little bit more, but I am a badass because I've had to fight like hell to be the fullest version of myself. My early life was tough in the way that I was basically robbed of my authentic self, my authentic experience growing up. And so the badassery is really about committing my journey to becoming more and more of myself and helping others to learn how to do that as well. We've all had stories where life has happened to us, where we've been robbed of really essential parts of our lives, of ourselves, of our soul, of our true essence. And I do think that that's the key to joy and happiness, is becoming more of ourselves. And so I love the badassery of being your fullest self.
What a great view on the word badassery. I'm curious though, when did you first realize that what you were feeling wasn't a representation of the real you and it was just stuff? Because I am imagining people listening going, oh, that's all well and one, but how can you feel badass when your life is shit?
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that there's been a series of so many big moments in my life that fell apart, starting probably in my early 20s. And over the course of those moments of crisis where I was going through a breakup, I was going through, a loss of a career that I thought that I spent my whole life, pursuing and learning how to do. And I had these moments where things just fell apart. And I think in those moments was when I realized and I took the opportunity to go within and say, okay, what's going on here? Why is this not working out? Why am I having these repetitive situations where I'm not getting what I thought I was going to get out of pursuing X, Y, and Z? And I was able to go within and be able to say, okay, something here is not in alignment. Something here is not being true to me, right? Or isn't the true me. And I think that in a lot of ways, life will collaborate with us if we think about that. Like sometimes we have great losses that feel horrible, but you could also look and say, okay, well, maybe that was in my best interest so that I could become the next best version of myself. And I think it's been a learning curve for me my entire life, like trying to, have these moments where I looked at loss or looked at, an unexpected turn of events and said, okay, how can I be more of me now? How did this help me shed some of the stuff that I was given that was never mine to begin with?
Thank you for sharing that. And what really stood out for me and what I believe wholeheartedly is when we have the courage to ask questions versus just assuming, then it can start to happen. So I think it's really powerful that you call that out. I think what you said was, I gave myself permission just to go within. And I want to be cognizant that maybe first time listeners are like, what do you mean by go within? So
Yeah.
this is words, I don't want to say jargon, but this is stuff that, those of us in this industry, I'm a coach, and Lane, as you're going to find out in the rest of the podcast, it does this in spades. When we say go within, we kind of just mean stay quiet and just start asking and think rather than being speaking and going and asking questions on the outside. Ask questions of yourself. Think, go within. Is there anything else you want to add to that definition? Because I want to make sure that people understand they may not be on the same path you're at.
Well, this might sound a little bit of a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a little bit of a very strong and bold statement, but I'm going to say it anyway, which is that I think that we have an inner oracle within us, all of us, and it's this inside space that knows what we need, that knows who we truly are. And it's there for us to learn how to listen to it, to learn how to uncover it, to learn how to discover what that is, right? And I think that's just, we all have that. You can call it your soul, you can call it, whatever that feels like to you. In the book, I call it an oracle. You are your own oracle, right? And like learning how to listen to that, learning how to go within, is really, in my opinion, one of the greatest tools that we can give ourselves, because we're always, and it's just the way society is. It's the way that we're raised. We're always being taught to look outside. Somebody out there knows better than me, right? Somebody, please tell me how to be, who to be, what to do, how to think, right? That's just what so many of us are given as we're being raised, right? And so I think it's a bold and badass thing to do, to say, actually, hold on. Let me learn how to go within and start to listen. And it's like a skill, it's like a muscle. The more, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. I think each of us, just the sheer idea of saying, let me go within, let me be quiet. Let me even just ask myself a simple question of, what do I need to know right now? What do I need to know about myself right now? Why am I not feeling great right now? And I think when we listen with curiosity instead of with judgment, we always get information that we need, and we can build on that. And I think that inner oracle is a thing that we can grow and depend on more and more as we, get better at it.
Great example and description of that, but plain devil's advocate here, because that's the host's job. What do you say to someone who's like, well, that's great, but I got lots of voices inside. I got the one that says you're a loser, just shut up. I got the one that says stay quiet. So how do I hear the one that's actually giving me the advice that I really need to know?
We all have this inner critic, this inner uh, what's the word? The inner critic, or the part of us that is so judgmental. All right. And that comes from so many places. That comes from authority figures who told us we weren't good enough. It comes from society who said we're not being who we're supposed to be, right? So these voices, I think that we have, if there's a judgment to it, if there's a feeling that we have within that says, I'm not quite good enough, I need to be better, or I need to be different, I think that's how you know that somewhere along the line it's coming from an outside source that has that feeling of judgment or cutting you down. It feels clear and clean, and it also feels like supportive and growthful, and it doesn't have this sense of like you're not good enough. It has this idea of like, hey, could you try this? Hey, like it's like a cheerleader, right? And I think that that's how, for me, and that's how when I work with other people, that's how I kind of like to talk about it, is like you kind of have to tune into how it feels inside you. Does it feel judgmental, or does it feel encouraging?
Such a great way to describe it. And as you were talking, I couldn't help but picture myself or even my children when they were little. This idea that they could do and be, we could do and be anything. I remember distinctly being very, very little, and it never occurred to me that I couldn't. Just never occurred to me, because as I was learning and growing, I had the love and the support, and my imagination was amazing. And what I realized is that as I got older, that level of trust and creativity diminished for all the reasons that you've already mentioned: society, what people have said to us, experiences that we've had. So I'm likening it to that belief that many of us have as very young children, that we are the center of the universe before things happened, and we stopped believing that. I don't know if that resonates with you, and I don't know if it's going to resonate with the audience, but that's kind of the feeling that I got as you were describing it.
I love that you said that, because the book, a prologue in the book that says, I came here to be brilliant. How life happens, is a different thing, right? Life has a really shitty way of making you forget what you know. And I think that that's exactly right. And that's how I kind of tell the story in my book. It's part memoir, it's part toolkit of offering creative ways to sort of get back in touch with ourselves. But I think that's true. We all come in with this brilliance, this inner brilliance that's so unique to us, right? And each of us is so special and so unique because we have a singular brilliance that nobody else does. And it doesn't occur to us, right, as young people, like you said, that we were anything other than that. But as we grow and as life impacts us, we forget that, or we stop believing that, or stop experiencing that, just that pure joy of who we are. And I think it's really important that we find ways to get back to that, because I think that so many of us have this inner ache. We can't quite put our finger on what we're missing, but it's there. When you get quiet and when life is still, you feel it. And I think in all the work that I've done for myself personally, and in the work that I do, I've kind of boiled it down to this, which is that we're missing beautiful, important parts of ourselves that we need to be reunited with. That's that ache. And when we can reunite with those parts of ourselves and uncover them and discover them and recover them, we come into greater wholeness. And that brings us the fulfillment and the ease that we're all looking for, right?
So good. Could we link this need that you've just described to your experience of being in a fundamentalist cult? Because I mentioned it in the introduction.
Yeah.
No point in pretending I didn't say it. Can you just tell us a little bit about that and how you feel maybe there's a connection to that ache that we all have?
Yeah. I had a very extreme, situation, but I think that all of us can relate to this in some way. In my youth, in the cult, and then we did leave the cult, but my parents were still very much in this fundamentalist belief system, right? So really, what the core of this belief system was is that we are not good as individuals. We have to be perfect for God. We have to be better, that we are inherently needing to be something other than we are. We have to be, what everybody tells us to be from the Bible, or from, in my situation in the fundamentalist cult, a lot of what was being, taught and propagated was so far beyond the beautiful principles of the Bible, right? And I just want to sort of say for your listeners that my experience with religion is